I finally received my front wheel bearing kits today, and I couldn't wait to get started on installing them. I will warn you though, there's quite a bit of OCD on display in this video, for the reason being, it took more than a month to get these wheel bearings, and an accident is not an option. I don't want to wait another month if I screw it up, so I wanted to make sure it was absolutely spot on. And I did achieve that at the end of the day, on this side anyway. Because it took so long, I've only got one done so far. I'll do the other one tomorrow. So this is the inside bearing. The first thing you want to do is install the races. After that's done, the rest is pretty straightforward. Now you probably can use a clamping arrangement to press these in. It really isn't hard to get these races to go in. I'm barely even using the handle. I think most of the time I didn't use a handle at all. I'm using the old bearing races as a suitable mandrel to press them in. Why not use them? They're only going in the garbage anyway. I have this old 116 slot nut socket, which is for rear wheel bearings on those, and 126s. I don't think I'll ever use it again because they're quite the nightmare to change, but it's absolutely perfect for these bearing races, coincidentally. So it's just a case of pressing that, making sure it's going in straight, and then making sure it's bottomed out. I did take quite a while and checked it numerous times, as you'll see. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. And that inner side race is now pressed in and bottomed out. Before going ahead and installing that bearing and the seal, I would recommend putting the other race in first. It doesn't really matter, but you might as well. So this was the arrangement I set up for doing the outer side race. I just had all of these bits and pieces lying around. Coincidentally, they fit perfectly. It's like it was made for it. So that's that race pressed in as well. This hub is getting quickly ready to install. This is not a hard job really, as long as you've got the right tools to do it. So it's starting to look good already. These bearings I have packed with grease. It's just a case of dropping that in now, and then it's time to get on to installing that inside radial seal ring. And this is the inner side double lip seal. It's just going to get pressed in now with these tools that I also found absolutely perfect fitting. Today it was just meant to be. I had everything at hand and everything worked first time. It's good when that happens. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often, but it happened today. So this hub assembly is now basically ready to take over to the car and get started on its installation. However, don't forget to put grease within the two lips of that double lip seal. You can't have rubber just rubbing against metal without lubrication. It actually specifically says this in the manual to make sure you put grease here. And of course I did. And of course, for good measure, I decided to smear a little bit of grease on the running surface where that double lip seal is going to be running, just to make sure it's not going to be dry rubber on the metal. Not much chance of that because I have filled the two lips with grease, but in any case, it's not a bad idea. This may not always just slide on this easily. There are tolerances here. So sometimes you may need to use a pulling tool to actually get this to go on. Fortunately on this car, probably because it's done so many kilometers, there may be some wear on these stub axles. These went on pretty damn easily. And removal was quite easy as well. I think I only had to use a puller on one side, and even then it was pretty damn easy to come out. Not mentioned already is that I am weighing this grease container as I go. I'm making sure that the correct quantity of grease is going into these hubs. On this particular model, the total amount of grease, including the cap quantity, is 70 grams per side. Not all models are the same. You need to check out the technical specifications in the workshop information system or your service manual for your particular model variant. They're not all the same. There are differences. So now I've packed the outer bearing with grease. That can get installed now. getting close to the completion of the job. Unfortunately, the hardest part is actually adjusting the bearing clearances. That is quite a nightmare. It's such a fine adjustment that it takes multiple attempts to get it right, and even the tightening of the clamping screw on this clamping nut alters the adjustment, so it does take multiple attempts to get it right, and you do need a dial gauge to actually check the bearing clearances. Obviously some people, they're going to think, I don't need that rubbish, I can just do it by feel. Sure, you can. No doubt people have been doing that way for years, but I like to do things as per the book, and so I have a dial gauge, and I've done it to specification, as you'll see shortly. What I like to do is tighten it up, rotating it between tightenings until you can definitely feel it's as tight as it goes without seizing the bearings. You don't really want to damage them, but you just want to make sure you don't have clearance being taken up by grease. As close to metal on metal as possible so you can get an accurate adjustment of the bearing clearances. That's what I do anyway. I'm not 100% sure if that's what the manual suggests, but it works for me. So now that I've basically removed any clearance whatsoever, I've now got the dial gauge attached. What you haven't seen is the 50,000 previous attempts I made to get the clearances within specification. It was quite time consuming. Every time you tighten that screw, as I said, it seems to move things around. But I got it in the end. Specification 0.01 millimeters to 0.02 millimeters. You really need a dial gauge to get that kind of precision. It's not something you can feel by hand. And of course, tightening up the clamping screw to 8 Newton meters is the final touch for that bearing adjustment. And of course you are supposed to check that after you've done that. I did do that off camera. And I'm very happy with the way that feels. So, a job well done as far as I'm concerned. Apparently this radio interference suppression ground contact is only used up to 1992. Cars after that era, this was deleted for cost-cutting measures. I can't imagine there would be much cost saved there, probably 2 cents per car, but I guess every cent counts. Now we're really getting close to the end of the job, and what fits perfectly on top of this new cap is the old cap. And you can belt the shit out of that to get that to seat home without damaging your new cap. Obviously the factory manual specifies some kind of whiz-bang tool that draws that cap in dead straight. So there is the risk with doing it this way that this happens, exactly what you're saying here. It goes on crooked, and if it goes on too crooked you might end up damaging it and causing leaks down the track. But I was able to correct this, and I'm reasonably confident it's going to be fine. It did seat properly, so I'm happy with it. So this side is done. I can do the other side tomorrow when I've got a bit more time. Unfortunately, it's already getting dark, so that's it for today.